My guest is my double second cousin, Woody Hanson, from Fort Myers, Florida. The biggest challenge in this episode is to keep the stories within a reasonable time limit for podcast. He has plenty. Woody and I were born only a month apart, and we share a strong bond. Our grandmothers were sisters, and our grandfathers were brothers. Our mothers were not only cousins, but were very close friends. Our dads were just as close as our mothers and very much alike with their humor. Woody has had an incredible life. From becoming friends with the great one, Roberto Clemente, and hanging around many major league stars as a kid, working at the Pittsburgh Pirates spring training clubhouse every spring in Fort Myers, to becoming an ATO at the University of Florida. Yep, he's a Gator. And graduating with honors with 2 majors, to going on golf trips and betting with Steve Spurrier, to becoming a nationally known expert in real estate, to becoming a hero to the Seminole Indians, to becoming known as an expert in the history of Fort Myers and Florida history. Our great-grandfather founded Fort Myers. He even went back and got his master's late in life. And he's not done. At the ripe old age of 67, he is currently a full-time PhD student working on his dissertation at the Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. Woody has lived life on his own terms. Considers family his greatest asset. He has 5 grown sons, was never afraid to take a risk, and has been wildly successful. So hold on to your seat, folks. You're about to meet my cousin, Woody.
Viewing life from a hearse, it could be worse. Laugh, think, and cry with the country undertaker.
This is Bruce Goddard, and you're listening to the View from a Hearse podcast. Man, I've got a special guest on here today. He is my double second cousin. And I know you guys in podcast land have no idea what that is, but his name is Woody Hanson, and he'll explain that. You talking about family connections, buddy. We got some connections. Woody is from Fort Myers, Florida. He is known by everybody in Fort Myers, Florida. I'm convinced of that. He and I are exactly the same age. Woody, I think you're a month older than me, or maybe I'm a month older than you. It's very close. Got many memories as a kid visiting Fort Myers, Florida, and hanging around with Woody. So, Woody, thank you for doing this. You're doing me a big favor for jumping over here. This is an interesting character, folks. He's lived a big, large life. He's had a blast doing it. So, Woody, let's talk about our relationship. Talk about what in the world is a double second cousin.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you for letting me do this. And man, y'all are my preferred family sector to whatever I got, you know. But now, like, hey, we all come from the same deal. We're all Gonzaleses, and our grandmamas were sisters, and they married brothers, which is nutty, but that created a special link between my mama and my Aunt Naya that I knew was special.
That Aunt Naya is my mother.
Yeah, and her wonderful husband, your daddy, my Uncle Ed, who seemed to have been a double first cousin of my dad. You know,
they were so much alike.
Yeah, they're so much alike. They're both cut up. They lived through the Depression. They lived through world wars. They lived through it all. But those guys, they found a way to be happy and to see, you know, the beauty and whatever did the humor and things. And they didn't take themselves or life too serious.
Yeah,
and it's good. They set a good pathway for us to follow.
Yeah, they did. And you're right. Mama and your mama were not only double first cousins, but they were so much alike. They were very spiritual, very religious ladies. they were friends besides being double first cousins. But the crazy thing is that your dad and my dad were just as close as they were. I mean, they were crazy guys. They cut up. Now, they worked. They cut it off when they had to make a living. But when they were together, we had a lot of laughing going on, didn't we, Woody?
You know, it was always a joy to know when you guys were coming. You know, it was like, if I knew y'all, like, I'd get to go to the beach, you know, and hang out with y'all at the beach and all that. But it was just, I don't know, it's something special about your mom and dad, you know, and you guys. But, you know, it's like my first memories of like Uncle Ed is coming in and being able to, like, my mom would meet him at the door and he would just pat her on the back, and he could unsnap a woman's bra by patting her on the back. And my mama would just go, "Oh, Ed, stop it, Ed." You know, and then they'd go, Ed. Then we go to up in Reynolds. One day they had to go down to y'all's, you had a store, a general store.
Right.
You had a funeral home. And they took me in there one day, and there is this, you know, a guy, a dead guy, you know, I guess it was a client. And I was like, I haven't been around this stuff. Cadaver, like, you know, like growled, like, "Grr." And my old man like saw me jump and they laughed so hard. You know, it's like that kind of stuff. That's what those guys, that their kind of humor would go to.
I remember y'all being out at the beach and your dad being out there, and I'm not sure if you were there. You probably were. But George and I took one of our buddies down, Scott. You probably remember Scott. He used to come down to Florida with us some, and Daddy had us playing poker. And Daddy was a sleight of hand. He could deal off the bottom. And your daddy came in, and he knew what was going on, but we were playing strip poker. And Daddy had all of us buck naked sitting there playing cards. And your daddy and my daddy were completely dressed. And Mama came in, "Ed, what in the world are you doing?" The other thing that happened, Woody, I'll never forget. You'll appreciate this. I may have told you this. I may not. But Daddy was big in the Kiwanis Club here. He helped form it at the beginning in the late 50s, and he was always very involved in it. So it happened to be his Friday to have the program. He had a casket salesman who was very funny, that knew one joke after another. Daddy was convinced that we had too many serious programs at the Kiwanis Club. So he had a casket salesman, his name was Harry Moody, to do the program. He said, "What I want you to do is just tell jokes." And he knew that Uncle Stanley and Aunt Mary Ellen were coming into town, but he didn't know they'd get there that early. But they got there before this program. So Daddy changed the program. He said, "Stanley, I want you to sit up," because he had on a shirt and tie.
Yeah.
He said, "I want you to sit up at the table with me, and I'm going to introduce you as the speaker." And then he got the casket salesman to put on some overalls or some blue jeans and start beating on the gas heater while he was trying to introduce Stanley. And Mama was helping serve the food. She was part of the woman's club that was serving food, so she was in on it. And he was beating on it, and people were turning around and said, "What's this guy doing? He's got this guest here." I don't know how he introduced him, but it's some kind of boring subject. And they couldn't get past it, but him beating on it. And finally, the man came up and told jokes. The other thing I remember, we had this little restaurant called the Dealer Burger. And your daddy was in town one day, and again, he had on a shirt and tie. Both of those guys wore ties just about all the time. Right?
Yeah, what was that about?
I don't know, but they did.
Saturdays at the office.
Even traveling to North Carolina from Florida, stopping in Reynolds, he's got on a coat and tie. And Daddy had the same thing.
Crazy.
But anyway, he came in a Dealer Burger, and Daddy announced pretty loud to the people at his table, "This is Stanley Hanson with the Internal Revenue Service." You could have heard a pin drop. So they were always carrying on foolishness. Man, we got some great memories of that.
Yeah, something else that happened. I think they went to church together up there in Reynolds, and your dad told the minister that my mom and dad were gospel singers. And so, my mom and dad don't know anything about this, so they're prompting them to come on up and sing, because they think they're like gospel singers. And my dad, he told me about that. I laughed so hard. Church is fairly, serious place for my mom anyway, and my dad always counted the money at Riverside. So, it's like he never had to go to church. He counted the money for the offering. I remember I went in there one day and I said, "Don't forget Christmas is coming." I thought that was funny. He slapped the dog daylights out of me.
I remember sitting with Daddy. I was in college, I think, and I was sitting with him on a Sunday at church. I was home from school, and the title of the sermon, it was in the bulletin. It was everywhere, but Daddy didn't bother to look at that. Is "What time is it?" And Daddy was figuring. I don't know what he was buying or selling or whatever he was doing, but he had figures all over the bulletin. He was not paying one bit of attention to what was going on. And finally, after all the singing and responsive readings and all that stuff, the preacher got in the pulpit and said, "What time is it?" All of a sudden, Daddy looked at his watch, said 25 minutes to 12. And everybody laughed, but he was not being funny. He thought the man was asking what time it is. Your grandmother and my grandmother were also sisters and very close. And I didn't ever come to Fort Myers, obviously, without visiting Aunt Ellen. So I've got all kind of memories of coming down to Fort Myers. We came for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks every summer. Part of my first memories is I remember your house, Shadow Lane. You still have that house, right, on Shadow Lane?
I still live in it. I live in my mother and father's. My bedroom is my mom and dad's bedroom.
Really?
It's crazy.
I can see that house right
now.
I
mean, at night, I was thinking the other day, I was going, man, if you had a GPS device, I bet the center of my brain ain't more than 12 inches away from where the center of her brain was every night. It's like, it's because it ain't a big room. You only got to put the beds in a certain way, But going back to the grandmas, my grandma was Nanny. I didn't really get her name until, like you say, Ellen. She had a brother. They had a brother, Bruce. Okay, my favorite uncle, Bruce Armstrong, and he lived in Tampa. And he called me Woody Doody, and he always bring a pistol Christmas, and we go shoot it. And then there was the last Christmas I had with him. My mom and dad were going up to Donna's in Charlotte, and I was coming back from University of Florida, so dude, I never even had a beer till I got to the University of Florida. Okay? Right. So it's like, but I grew up quick, ATO and all that.
Right.
But so my uncle Bruce comes down. He worked for a Ford guy up in Tampa, and who every year gave him like a bottle of Crown Royal, for Christmas instead of a bonus or whatever. So I know he's coming down. My mom and dad going to Charlotte. I said, I ain't going to Charlotte. I'm going to stay here. So he comes and stays at my mom and dad's house. We drank the whole bottle of Crown Royal. I never would have thought this stuff existed, And next thing I know, I got him up there dancing on my mom's table in our living room, and he cracks the marble top. This is Uncle Bruce.
His name is Robert Bruce, which is my name.
Yeah,
that's the connection.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never heard that story.
And his dad, which is your great granddad, is Robert Bruce Armstrong, who lived in most of his life in Arcadia, and he was the sheriff. He was a federal marshal, and he was a mayor.
Right.
And all the pictures, he's tall like Abe Lincoln, and you and I are the only ones that got his height.
Right.
Nobody else got his height. I don't know anybody in my family got height other than you and me.
How tall are you? 6'5" or 6"?
Yeah, 6'5", 6'6", if I see it.
So am I. We're about the exact same height. That is crazy.
Yeah. I played basketball at lunch at Fort Myers High School with the bros. Okay. I was buddies with all the bros, man. I don't know. So, and I was good, but like you played real ball. Because I remember Coach Stevens came out and wanted me to play varsity basketball because I had touch. I could do it. But so I can one out basketball, and the first thing we do is run steps. I'm like, I can't do it. And I told him, I said, this ain't the kind of basketball I play. I can't go to the foul line and back, top of the key and back. But you could. And we played, you had the key to the gym. And at that school, that little, I'm like, holy cow, you got the key to the gym. So we go in there and we play, it ended up being 1-on-1, and it's like, like 21 or something. And it's like, I got like 3 points. You got legs. That's like a big difference, On that trip, you got me like a date with some girl that I think is your neighbor. You guys are ahead of me on the women curve. I hadn't started yet. And man, I've never been so scared in my life. It's like I was on that date,
I got to figure out who that was. There's no telling. I'm sure I was surrounded by good-looking women growing up, good-looking girls. Yeah.
You know, right, that classic Southern thing, you know, it's like, what are you going to do? Our DNA is like, prepares us for that.
Interesting you talk about basketball. What I remember coming to watch you play baseball, and I played Little League Baseball, but you played baseball at a different level than I was playing. I mean, I remember watching that league. I mean, you were a shortstop, you were a pitcher, you were a very good baseball player, and I knew about baseball. We had 4 teams in Reynolds, and we played each other all year, but that was a different level. I mean, you could wear me out playing baseball. I mean, you grew up playing that game, I know, right?
Yeah, Little League Baseball is a big deal here. I pitch. And one of the things that helped me is because I grew up in the Pittsburgh Pirates clubhouse in spring training. You know, they hit fungo ball, so you get to do all these little things. I'm throwing, so the pitching coach would come work with me. So the Pirates really helped me get mechanics, wind up, follow through, and all that. I'm just going to tell you, man. There's two types of people, guys in Fort Myers. Those that made Little League All-Stars and those that didn't. I was on the '67 All-Stars. We'd go play up Arcadia and Punta Gorda and all that, and that's just a big deal. That's like, you're a land of God. I mean, it's like me making it through Hell Week and being ATO.
Right.
Being on Little League All-Stars is a defining thing. and it was a big deal. It was cool.
Yeah. Well, it had to be because you had a lot of teams, and I was so impressed as I got ate up with mosquitoes. I remember I've never had so many mosquitoes in my life watching you play baseball, but I was very impressed. So we got to get into this Pittsburgh Pirate thing. So guys, you can't see Woody. I'm looking at him on this Zoom call. He's got on a Pittsburgh Pirate hat and Pittsburgh Pirate colors. The Pirates did their spring training for years in Fort Myers. And, Woody, you got to tell the story. He ended up being in the clubhouse, part of the clubhouse staff for years, knowing all these famous players that he and I both grew up idolizing, from Roberto Clemente to Willie Stargell.
All right. Well, the whole thing comes back from being born in Fort Myers. Because like Bruce, we have another half whatever, my uncle TD, my Tally Ellis down there in Naples. Okay.
Yeah.
He took baseball, Olympic baseball, like to England, Scotland. That's part of his legacy. And he was like, he and Park Pygott, local guy, they were like AAA. Like, I think Uncle TD, the AAA Red Sox, got a knee injury. Park Pygott ended up running Lee County Parks and Recreation. So with that's like my dad's best buddy, our uncle's best buddy. So then you get a ticket to go backstage. Right. So I would go to it started out, I got all the baseball games. I'd hang out by the clubhouse back door, and the equipment manager, Hooley, who was with the Pirates for 50 years, when he died, they put an H on their shoulder. Right. John Houlihan. He'd always give me crack bats. And then one day he said, "Kid, what's your name?" And I go, "Woody." And he said, "Hell, you're here every day. You want why don't you work for me? You want a job?" So I get a job in the clubhouse. I'm what's called the clubhouse boy. And it's unreal. The Pirate Clubhouse was magical. I started in '65 and I did it for 4 years, '65, '66, '67, '68. So I had Clemente, Mota, Stargell, Lou, Gene Alley, Murtaugh, Jose Pagan, Richie, Hebner, pitchers, Blast, Steve Blast, Vernon Law. My first girlfriend was Michelle Face, Elroy Face's daughter, who was a forkball, from the bullpen.
Yeah. I know Elroy Face, yeah.
Yeah, so when the Pirates left that year to go back, and now like number one song was like Mama's in the Papas, leaving on a jet plane or something like that. I was so brokenhearted over that girl, man. I told my mother I was sick, stayed home. I watched the jet fly over our house, took her back to Pittsburgh. Man, I seen them put the steamer trucks together, the big trunks that they travel their stuff with. And they put the steamer trucks together and had boxing matches. And so I'm in there one day, and Jose Pagan comes out with a silver cape, like a boxer, gets up on top of this thing, and he knocks out Manny Sanguillen, like to win the Pirate boxing title. And I'm like a kid, man. It's like it was unreal. But Clemente is the deal, and Fort Myers has a long history of segregation. So Clemente's with the Pirates, a 300 lifetime hitter, humanitarian. He could not stay with the Pirates because he was black. and the Pirates stayed downtown at the Bradford Hotel, but only the white ones did. And then if they had a community event at Fort Myers Country Club, Clemente couldn't go. You know, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't go because I wanted to see Clemente. I didn't care about these other guys. Clemente had a double thing against him. He spoke Spanish and he was black. So, and because of that, and I would think about it, 65, 67, 8, man, that's the heart of the 60s. That's like the Civil Rights Movement, Voting Rights Act 65, Civil Rights Act of 64. Right. So he was always curious about, he talked to me, and I figured this out because he wanted to understand like what my life was about. Because it's kind of like I was on the other side of, you either grew up on the riverside of McGregor or the other side, right. You know, and so you always want to know what my school was like, what my mother and father did for a living. And so it was wild. We'd have these personal talk. We'd go to the batting cage and I would put the balls in, you know, the spring arm machine, the bat machine for him and watch him hit and stuff like that. But yeah, he was unreal. I mean, he was real deal. I tell you what. And, but the great thing about that too, the Pirates, one of my jobs, I had to clean out the visiting clubhouse. Okay. You know, now that, if you work with equipment manager, you get hats, you get all the baseballs you want. Right. So I go clean them out. And I'd take a couple balls over to get them signed. So, I mean, I got like the 65 Cardinals, you know, World Series champ, you know, Kurt Flood, Lou Brock, you know, all those Bob Gibson, you know, and it's like, but my greatest one, I mean, you know, I was there and it was like 67, I think 67, 68 Red Sox. And this is a good story. So we have a 3-inning rainout, which is unusual. And in the first inning, the like third batter is Yastrzemski. And he hits a shot to right field. Clemente with a guy on second. Clemente goes over the wall with it. He has a rolling heart of the high glove. It's like looks like a highlight fronton thing, you know. And so he goes to the wall and robs him of a homer, and then throws a laser beam to third and gets the guy out. Not even a hop, because you're supposed to like one hop. It was unreal. Everybody on the bench knew what they saw, and it was like wow. And so then in the bottom of the first, man on second, Clemente's up, he hits a shot, and goes over the wall and gets it, does the same thing. So we're just like, this is one of those great moments, and like you were there, you know. And I went back to the clubhouse, and you know, it was a rain out, so Yaz and Tony Conigliaro, they'd already gotten on the bus, so I had to go up on the bus with a handful of balls for all my buddies to get Yastrzemski, who was like a Triple Crown winner, okay. And then Tony C., who was destined to be another DiMaggio, but he got hit, you know, like in the cheek by a fast pitch and crushed his eye socket, and he was done. Yeah, and I'll tell you a funny story about, that ball. Life's a funny deal. That ball, all right, I got mucho years later, my buddy Billy Smith, the mayor, and we lost our spring training team. Like we had like a couple of years where we did, and then Lee County got the Twins. Lee County ain't Fort Myers, you know. Right. So he said to me, he said, "You want to get the Red Sox?" Like, what are you talking about? He says, he goes, "I've already talked to them. We can bring them from Winter Haven here," and so we started that. So I would have to fly to Boston with a city councilman to babysit them and report back to the mayor, like what were they asking, all that stuff. And I went up there and I took that ball with me because Mrs. Yawkey had a romance, a sweet spot for Tony Conigliaro. Right. So I put that ball on the table and spun it around with that autograph facing her. And she looks at it, kind of looks back, looks at it, and she reaches out, grabs it, looks at it, she looks at me and goes, "Where'd you get this?" Kind of suspicious. And I had the Indians do this to me on a later thing too, but like, "Where did you get this?" I said, "I held it in my hand back in like 1968, you know, Terry Park." I said, "I brought it up here so it'd bring us luck." But, and it's a funny thing because at that table was, for the Red Sox, was John Donovan, who was corporate counsel and former like legislator, you know, in Massachusetts. Another guy named Healy, who was head of special projects, Mrs. Yawkey, and I'm with the city councilman. This goes into another story. It's like me and a bunch of guys we used to always go to one away game every year, like Gator game. And so this one year we went to New York City to see Florida play Rutgers. We could only get a room for one night, Friday. And because what happened is, this is the year the Mets played the Red Sox in the World Series, the Buckner series, right. 86. Oh, yeah. And yeah, and I'm walking down I'm Times Square, and a guy walks by who I know, and I go, dude, Howard, how are you, man? He goes, not good. He goes, I got scratched by a cat. I got cat scratch fever, and I got to fly home to Boston. He says, if y'all know anybody needs a hotel room, you can have my room. I'm like, what room? He says, I got a suite at the Grand Hyatt on 42nd Street. We took the suite, we end up finding out that the Red Sox are staying at this hotel. So we're drinking Heinekens, with Jim Rice, and all them guys. But we come back from the Gator game, and we come back to the room, open the door, and there's an envelope on the floor. And this is I'm like, not open it. It's a letter bomb back when that stuff was going on. And so we open it, and there's a sleeve of tickets to the World Series. There's one ticket for the first two games in New York for the Mets, and then there's games 6 and 7. And so we went down to a scalper. I didn't want to go first night. It's Saturday. So the opener, buddy of mine, took game 1, and then he took a game 6 ticket, swapped it out. Okay. The next night I went and saw Dwight Gooden pitch against Roger Clemens. Okay. And so we then find out one of us is sitting in the middle of the Red Sox administration. And so we figured out what happened. I told that story in front of Mrs. Yockey, and that guy, John Donovan, he starts shaking his head, and he goes, I'm the guy to put those tickets underneath that door. He says, I put it under the wrong door. He goes, and he said, the craziest thing, kid told me that I never got tickets. I didn't believe him. So I should have, because he became a Jesuit priest. But he thought he scalped them. So I told that baseball leads to that story, and those people are just shaking their heads. But that's kind of been the backstory of the you just have to show up.
I went in his office one time. This is after we were adults in Fort Myers, and the baseball stuff you got in there, oh my gosh, it is unbelievable. Yeah. He's got a collection, I'm telling you. Today, we're inundated with baseball. You can get it any channel, anytime you want, any game you want. You can stream it. Back then, when we were growing up, during that time in the early 60s, there was a game of the week on Saturday with Pee Wee Reese and Dizzy Dean. We collected baseball cards. We were huge baseball fans. These guys were idols to us. When he talks about the Buckner World Series, I know exactly what he's talking about. He missed a ground ball. He went to first base. All that stuff, these guys were really idols. And Roberto Clemente, some of you guys need to Google him because you don't know what he did. He got killed in an airplane crash, helping another country and giving himself away, basically, is what he was doing. He was a great guy. Maybe the best baseball player that ever lived, that died before he had time to play it out. Right, Woody? I don't know if there's anybody ever been any better than him.
Yep. I've been around a bunch, I got to be around Ted Williams and a bunch of ball players. And because Ted was a manager with the Washington Senators, and I got to clean that clubhouse out. But yeah, Clemente to me is the greatest baseball player ever. And he died on New Year's Day night or whatever, flying food to Nicaragua after they had an earthquake. And the story about that plane, the plane was it was no good. It had a long history of mechanical failures and all that. And it's a big deal. But I think what you said too, Bruce, about baseball in the 60s, because, that's when the color TVs were coming into our living rooms. That's it brought the Vietnam story to our living rooms. But, at 65, man, it was baseball was a big deal. Come home to church on Sunday, get there in time to listen to Dizzy Dean, Right. And I think they followed the Yankees. But man, it was a big deal. Baseball cards, like you said, you made me think of that crappy little piece of gum they put in that Topps
little flat piece of gum, yeah. My youngest son, Woody, is a real Braves fan, and I took him as a gift one year, his Christmas gift. I gave it to him in advance. We went to Cooperstown to see these Braves get inducted, Glavin, Maddox, Bobby Cox, and all that crowd. And, of course, what I was interested in, not only were all the Hall of Famers there, but these baseball players on the street, like Maury Wills. They were not in the Hall of Fame, but they signed autographs. So Luke made the comment when we were flying back home. He said, I went there as a Braves fan. I came back as a baseball fan. And that's true. I'm a Braves fan now, but I was way into baseball before they ever came in my life. So I'm a baseball fan.
Spring training is like different because that you have access to the ball players. If you're a fan, it's relaxed, casual. They sign ball. You lean over the fence. It's a whole different gig. But by being in the clubhouse, it's like, well, in spring training, man, you play Detroit Tigers today, American League, and then you play Houston Astros the next day, Rusty Staub, and all that. So you got to see like a cornucopia of baseball teams.
Right.
It didn't matter if there's AL or NL. It was like you can see them all. Now, you said Maury Wills, he was with the Pirates, okay? And
later, he was later, you mean, yeah. Right.
Yeah, like 68. When I shined his shoes.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do was like take the cleats, and then shine them. And because he was a base stealer, he would get shoes sent to him. And so he'd have like 10, 12 pairs a day. The other guys, I'd have to clean two shoes or 4 shoes. For him, it'd be like 12, 14 shoes. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. It was bad. But, the first day of spring training, the station wagon would come up. It'd be the Rawlings guy with a station wagon full of gloves, Heart of the Hide, shoes. Next day, it'd be Wilson A2000. So I'd get $20 bills from all my buddies, and I would buy them gloves from those guys. For $20, I could get you any glove you wanted. I never had to go to 6th period because I gave the guy bats, and he let me leave early to go to the ballpark. But, that was good stuff. It wouldn't have happened unless my dad drove me there and dropped me off, left work, and did that. This is about our fathers. This is how special. This goes back to like touching. That was a gift given to me by my dad and by his friend Park Pygott, old crackers that are from here, born and raised here, Masonic Lodge, and that's a mystery to me. My dad died, and he told me they're going to have a Masonic burial. I go, no, hell, you ain't either. I said, I'm worn out. And this kid, he goes, dude, you get to stuff. I mean, I was worn out. I mean, it was a lot, you look back now, it was the greatest moment ever. It was, but I was worn out. I go out to where my mom got buried, this funeral home. And I'm going there, and this guy's asking me questions. I just pulled a file. My mom my mom just died like, a year and a half ago. I said, pull that file. And I want the same thing. I'll give you a check. And the kid's like shaking his head, and I go to leave, and he goes, let me ask you one question, Mr. Hanson. I go, all right, go ahead. He goes, you sure you want pink? Because no, I'll sit down. All right.
That is great.
And then he said, you're going to have a Masonic funeral, whether you like it or not. Your dad was a worshipful master, as high as you can go. Yeah. So anyway, we did.
You went you're a Florida Gator. You were lambasting Gainesville, Florida, while I was in Athens, Georgia. You were ATO. My dad was an ATO. You had a connection with that. Daddy was ATO at Emory. He never let you forget that. He always talked about it, right?
Yeah, unreal. And that was so cool. He had like something on his ATO plaque or whatever. Yeah, I came back from an Auburn game. Last time I saw your dad, he'd had that accident with a deer. He hit a deer or something.
Right.
And so I went to see Florida play Auburn, and I looked at the map on how to drive home. And said, damn, I could ride through Reynolds. So I did. I think I saw you.
I remember. Oh, yeah, I remember. You had all 5 of your kids with you, yeah.
Yeah, that was the last time I saw your dad.
I know you have a relationship with Spurrier, and you've traveled to Europe with him and everywhere else. People would love to hear some Spurrier story. But you also, your dad was very successful in the appraisal business in Fort Myers. You took it to another level. I remember that. I remember running into you in an airport. I think we were in Houston or somewhere. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I heard you.
I do. I went University of Florida in fall of 1972. Started slow but finished strong. I got academic warning 1.7 in the first.
I hear you.
First quarter, yeah, because I found out about beer at the Rathskeller.
The first quarter I moved into the fraternity house, I made a C, D, and an F, and I came home and told Daddy that I spent all my time in one subject. he didn't buy it a bit. I tell you that.
School was, once I got going, I dug it. I ended up double majoring. I got a degree in real estate and urban economics, and I got a degree in architecture with honors on both of them. But architecture degree is like being in the Little League All-Stars. If you can make it to architecture school doing 2 and 3 all-nighters, it's like special ops,
right.
And so it's like when I meet people and they go, if you went to architecture school, then we're buddies. Architecture school is where I learned to think. Business school was nothing but algorithms and words and concepts. After architecture school, I could have gone to medical school. I'm convinced I could have done that. But that's what I did. This is the legacy piece of my life. Like what did I inherit? I got Florida's Miccosukee Indians, Seminoles. That was the greatest gift this family gave me, trusted me. But I was a week from starting graduate school in architecture. My dad came into the architect's office where I was at, and he came in, and the lady at the front buzzes me, says, "Your dad's here to see you." I'm like, "Oh, what's that about?" So I go in the conference room, my dad's there, and he got like a tear coming out of his face. I never seen that. I seen it once when his mom died. He said, "I need you to stay home from school for a year. I need help me." Because the 2 guys that worked for him got their MAI designations or opening their own business, and they designed it like to, corner him. And so I was the ace in the hole. So I was a week from going back to Gainesville. I was going to be in grad school. I had a scholarship, fully paid. I had everything. And my old man asked me if I'd help him. And before he could take a breath, I go, "Let's do it." I mean, if your dad asks you for help, you say no, you're going to suffer.
Right.
And so I went to work with him. We threw those guys out on the street. He hadn't done an appraisal in a long time. I ain't done one, and so we hustled. Golly, so that was 79. So 21 years later, I'm national president of the Appraisal Institute in Chicago, Illinois, America's largest real estate appraisal.
I remember.
Traveling to give talks in Cusco, Peru, New Zealand, Korea, Japan, all that stuff. I did that for my dad because he was an MAI. He didn't go to college, so that was a big deal. And so I became an MAI. And then I saw a pathway up the system, and I did it. And I really did it for my dad. But in the end, what it did for me, it made me a nationally, as an expert, a real estate consultant. I was basically an expert witness. And so I still work all over America. I got jobs going now in Seattle. I just did a job in Orlando for Universal Studios. There's a train that's coming out of Miami into Orlando International Airport. We don't want it to stop at Disney. We want to go to Universal. So my job is to help do the real estate economics on that. But here's what happened. I said, yeah, I'll stay out. Okay. I had started designing and remodeling an old building my dad, our office was. And so I did that when I was with that architecture firm. And so when I move in there with him, it's really just a mess. It's a mess. And so I'm there in his office. I'm not there 30 days, dude. This is the whole thing in my life. You want to take all the other stuff, throw it out. I'm there 30 days, all right? And door opens, and I look up, and it's this little itty bitty guy who I know immediately. I know it's an Indian, like Seminole Indian. And he's got a bigger guy with him. It's his nephew that drove him. And I heard him ask my secretary, Stanley Hanson, here. And he goes, yeah. And he told me, he said, "Woody, these fellas want to see your dad." So I went and got my dad. My dad comes out and my dad just takes one look and goes, Josie Billy. Because he like tears. My dad immediately had this thick tongue where he'd get choked up. And my dad could speak Miccosukee Indian because his dad taught him how to do it at dinner table. And so they went in the back. He took Josie back there in the back. And then also my dad calls me and he says, "Woodrow, come here." So I go in there and he goes, "I want you to meet your grandfather's very best friend, Josie Billy." That guy held my hand, looked into my eyes for like 5 minutes, left, and I took a picture and I said, "What's that about?" My dad said, He said, that's a medicine man. He goes, that's a real one. He's going to die next week. And he came to tell me goodbye. I'm like, no. And I always knew he had Indian connections because of Southwest Florida Fair, because there was a one-armed Indian that sold jackets, and carved canoes and stuff. The next week, I get a call from my old man, and he said, get a jacket. He said, we're going to the Big Cypress Swamp. Josie died, so we went down there, and burials for medicine men ain't quite like the burials that you and I are accustomed to. Other medicine men will put like medicine like in his burial thing, and so that was heavy. But that opened the door. Get out of that just opened the door for me into the whole Indian world. Then by the time when my dad died in 2005, my house, I lived there forever, so it was like every day I'd find another pack of pictures or papers. It was like, I'm telling you, it's a spiritual thing. I know that this stuff was not there. So, I remember after all this time, suddenly I got so much stuff, it's unreal. I go in the closet, which is for my bedroom, because I grew up in. I open the closet, and there's a stack of papers with a little string on them and a note that says, your grandfather's papers. I don't care what anybody believes or not. It's not important. I'm not, I don't try to push something on anybody. I'm just, what I'm going to tell you is a fact. You do what you want with it. That stuff wasn't there. And it ended up being the heart of a collection that had 5,000 items in it. I curated it for 8 years, and then I took it to the Indians. And and it's like it broke my heart when it left. I could show an elder. I could show them who they were, because they didn't keep a written record. Because my granddad did a census. I had census data that I could then cross-reference to digital images. So I could show them who they were. So they called me in the middle of the night. Dude, it's like these Indian stories are a big deal.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So you still have that ongoing relationship today, right?
Yeah, I get calls from them in the middle of the night. I had a group come to my office. They would come on weekends, groups 4, 6, whatever. Elders checked me out. One of them, like grandmother, knew my granddad, said he was a good man, good person. And her brother, that guy's grandfather, he still lived out on a hammock in the Everglades, because they had these humps of dirt, cabbage hammock. And he knew my grandfather well, and they talked to him because they want to take me out there to meet the guy, this old elder. And he told friends of mine, he said, I don't want to meet him. You tell him his granddad was a great guy, he loved our people, took care of us. He said, but I don't want to see another white man before I die, because he's out there to die. And that's the way they do it. They know when they die.
Right.
And so this group of Indians came up. And I was worn out because I did the graphics, architecture, but I also had scanned images, high res. So the head of the tribe says you can write your check, do whatever you want to do the graphics at our tribal council meeting at the Hard Rock Hotel over on, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. And so I did, wore me out. I came back, and these Indians come in on Sunday, and it's a friend of mine, Ava Billy, and she had a brother, Bobby C. Billy, and a granddad, Ingram Billy, who was my granddad's best friend because he was Josie's brother. And I was just worn out. I said to her, I said, I'm getting rid of this stuff. I can't be lugging around no more. It's too much work. And she stopped. And any woman won't look a white man in the eye. They don't do it until they know you. She stopped, and she just goes, you're not going to do anything with it. I go, what do you mean? She goes, your grandfather's finishing his life's journey through you. He says, you got to let him finish. And I'm like, wow. I was like, man. And she opens the notebook, and there's her mom. She never seen a picture of her mother, and like starts crying. And then they go to leave, go out the back door, and she lets her brothers walk out first, and she closes the door, sticks her finger on my nose. She says, looks at me right now, she goes, pay attention to your dreams. I went, ooh. Like, okay, I will. But that was like an Indian thing. And since then, it's like, it goes on, dude. It goes on.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
and then besides that, that's the Hanson side of that. And the Gonzales side,
Yeah.
we just were down, gosh, several years ago. Our family founded Fort Myers. Our great grandfather was a kid when he came in with his father and founded Fort Myers, right?
Yeah, we're it. I mean, it's funny because dude, you go by Goddard, but you're Hispanic, whether you like it or not.
True.
And I was told somebody, I was like, I just did a program for Telemundo, so I explained Fort Myers history from a Hispanic lens. And I said, you cannot understand Fort Myers without understanding the Spanish culture, because their family, man, the two generations had like 18 kids,
right?
But yeah, like Capmano Gonzalez, that's us, And I want to change my name on my birth certificate and make it Hanson-Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Honoring, because I
really
spent all this time honoring my father. Why have I overlooked my mother?
Yeah. And she was a genealogist. She had more stuff in between what you found in your daddy's paper, the Hanson side, and what your mama had. You've been overloaded with information. I mean, you really have.
That's why I did again. My dad got me in the Pirate Clubhouse, and my mother got me the Indians, but she's the one that kept all that stuff and organized it and all that.
Let's go back. I want you to tell us about Spurrier and how you met him.
So I was watching a football game one day on Saturday, and all of a sudden an ad comes on and it says, "Join me and Jerry as we play the finest golf courses in the world. Trip to Scotland." I'm like, what? I look at this like, really? 3,500. So I got my credit card out and booked. I took 4 of them, like right there. Like, I got them. Don't worry. So he comes down to play golf in Fort Myers because they travel around. Go to the local towns, have a gator day, and all that crap.
Right.
So they hooked me and him up to play golf that day. So we play golf, and we're flying out Saturday to Glasgow, Scotland. And so we get to Scotland, man. I'm with him, Jerry, and I got a couple of my buddies, ATOs, and I know the guy I know the guy put the trip together. So I played with Spurrier at Royal Troon the first day, and we went after that. And we played Western Gales, then we played Prestwick, and then we played Carnoustie. I'm not in that foursome, but we played Carnoustie, which is where Hogan won, the 4th one of the majors in a row. He played 36 holes in one day, Carnoustie, and then we go to St. Andrews. And then the last day, I'm in a foursome with Spurrier at St. Andrews. Now, how in the world do you put yourself on the first tee with Spurrier at St. Andrews? The day before, it's like, I just something about that place. It's windy, a weird out or whatever. That so he's giving me a hard time at dinner, and so he stands up. He goes, I'm gonna give you all a chance to make some money. He says, I'll back all the money you put up, but Woody will not beat 91 on the over-under. St. Andrews, and this is the day. This is on the new course. I finally just go, I don't even care anymore. I'm hitting the ball so bad, I don't even care. I just have fun. So what do you know? Par, bogey, par. And I come up to the 18th, and Spurrier's up on a ledge at this hotel that they built at the new course at St. Andrews, and he's looking down. He goes, "What do you got?" He's a cheapskate, man. He's always asking him for money. Oh, give me some pound notes. I left my money in the hotel. I'm like, dude, come on. So he goes, "What do you got?" I said, "Up and down." So I'm pin high. I chunk a wedge, but it gets on the green. And the caddy, like Igor, he got this one eye that like looks at the moon, whatever's up there. I ask him, I go, "Which way is it going to break?" He goes, "Well, it could go left, could go right." Great. All right, super. He goes, "Nah," he's like, "It depends on the speed." So he lines me up, and I make the putt. Spurrier's out. He's out $2,000. If I make this putt, it's 20 foot. Spurrier's out $2,000. I'm gonna tell you what, that hurts him. I mean, that's not good. And so I line up. I go to putt, and Igor, the caddy, goes, "All of Scotland's pulling for you, laddie." I'm like, that's good. That's a good thing. And so I putted, dude. It was center cut. I mean, it was like it didn't like just come up like little like roll off the ledge. It was center cut. And Spurrier, I look up, and he just turns and walks away. We then went back to Ireland, played Ballybunion, Waterville, all those. Went back again to Ireland, And the last course we played at, we had big money. I mean, we had big money on this because when you start, everybody puts in like $1,000,
Right.
and then you have separate bets. But and for some reason on this trip, I'm okay. I'm like playing bogey golf. You know, I'm hitting 7 irons.
Right.
So we get to the last course. I'm up by Spurrier by 7, and I get 7 shots. So it's called Old Head. It's like off the coast of this place. They sunk the Lusitania, but this is a spooky like place. I mean, the wind swirl and all that. So I get up on the first tee and I hit a 7 iron, 150 up the middle. And another one, Spurrier is like, what are you doing? I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I play your game, none of your business. So it's like he missed a putt. He's freaking out. He's running the numbers. He ain't gonna get no way he can beat me with a 7 iron. So he missed a putt. All of a sudden I heard this. He threw his putter in the ocean. I mean, it's like he threw it in the ocean. And I go, dude. And he walks over to my bag and takes out one of my Odyssey putters. I'm like, dude, get out! I said, get out of my golf bag. And he takes my putter. I said, put that back. And then he goes, hey, don't worry about it. We'll take care of this football season, which means tickets.
Right.
I got to go sidelines at every SEC game.
You also, last year, a couple of years ago, maybe before COVID, you decided to go back and work on your PhD, and you actually moved to Dublin, Ireland, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still hooked in there. Yeah. 2018, that Indian stuff. This is funny. I sold it to the museum. I mean, I know I have the last major collection. And so I had talked to people at the University of Florida. I talked to people at the University of South Florida. Everybody wants it. But the Seminole Tribe of Florida Inc. wants it and can write a check. And they were very generous. And it was enough for me I shut my business down after like 42 years. And I had gone for my 60th birthday. I went back to grad school, University of South Florida, and got a master's degree in Florida history, Florida study. And I fell in love with it. And we went like academic writing and research. And so it just worked out. In 2018, I found a slot. And my son was in Dublin, and there's a college there called Trinity College, and it's a 600-year-old school. Sister college is Oxford University. And it just so happened that there was a PhD supervisor, at an open slot for American history. And man, I got in. I couldn't believe it. I got in. So I moved over there, and there's a housing crisis. So I'm 64 years old. I'm living in a dorm, like student housing. These guys, I think they thought I was a cop. Man, I tell you, so this journey, it's taken me again. It's just I'm on. And then I had to come home from Ireland in 2020. In February, I was coming back, and that woman asked me if I'd ever been to Wuhan, China. I said no, and that was it. Then we went. Then we're indoors until we came outdoors. So anyway, I'm now a full-time student at Trinity College, and I'm working on my dissertation. You don't go to class, you don't have books, you don't have any of that stuff, and. So it's all I have to do is do a dissertation. It's going to be 100,000 words. That means 350 pages. It'll probably be a book. So I'm about 25% of the way done would be like purely accurate.
And that ain't bad for somebody that's about to be 68 years old. I definitely know how old you are. I think we're going to end on 2 things. You've got 5 boys, and yep. I know you're proud of those guys. They're like Woody. These guys they're go-getters.
Yeah, I got 5 sons. I mean, I heard Johnny Rivers on the radio the other day playing 7th son, and I go, what does that mean? And I looked it up. I go, God almighty, I'd have had 2 more if I know what 7th son was. If you have 5 sons, that's like 1/2 to the 5th power, which is 1 out of 32 chances. That's like, damn. So anyway, my oldest William, he and his cousin, my sister's boy Charlie, they had been working for years on a business model that Charlie started, and they went public.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they own NASDAQ. They're like GAMB. They are, so they're done. Everything it's marketing,
Yeah.
But they turned the corner. They bought the URL called gambling.com.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what Charlie, it's all about having a banner that attracts bugs. It's like hits. And so he developed a website where the people that are gambling online can come to his website and figure out in real time, well, what sites are paying out the most money and have the best odds. You don't bet with them,
right?
But you come to them to get information, like arbitrage,
right?
And then you go from their website to that. And part of the model is when you do that, like his website's a portal, and they get 5% of what you lose. Okay, so this thing grew and grew and grew and grew.
He took it public, and he's retired.
Wow. Yeah, so I got a 37-year-old kid that just took a company public with his cousin. And they're pretty Charlie. I mean, it's his thing.
I've actually met Charlie. He was in Florida. We were on the boat together out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie just bought a penthouse in south of France at Monte Carlo. He gave up his U.S. citizenship. He didn't even want it because of taxes. So he can't even come home for Thanksgiving.
That's unbelievable.
So and then I got my second son, Zach, who's also a finance graduate at University of Florida. And so he worked with me in real estate, but he's doing his own real estate now. They just did a $40 million deal. So he's getting ready to make a gigantic lick. Then there's Griffin, who I put through the golf program at Florida Gulf Coast University. And this guy's a scratch golf. Okay. I mean, he's scratch.
Yeah. He
gets to the last quarter, decides he don't want to finish for reasons I'll never know. But he's worked at Brookline, where the tournament's going to be, I think, this week.
It's happening. Yes. They're there now.
So he was an intern at Brookline.
Wow.
Griffin's a scratch golfer. And then Ethan, the next one, he's a fit. He loves to fish. And and God bless him, man. He got a captain's license, and they take 100-foot boats for the owner of the Boston Celtics from Naples up to Boston, and they deliver boats to Manhattan. But he takes people fishing. So, and I'll tell you what, if y'all want to catch a snook, redfish, or tarpon, you've seen his picture. I mean, he'll hand you the rod with the fish on.
I know.
But then I got little Dylan and his mama and her boyfriend. They've been together a long time. So the guy sold his house here, and they moved to Louisville, Georgia. They hunt a lot. So he'd been hunting up here on basically a slave plantation. It's an old plantation in Louisville,
right?
And it's on all the historic register and all that stuff. That's where they moved to. And so my youngest is up there with his mama on that plantation, and he's working on up there in Georgia.
Unbelievable.
That's my 5 boys.
Woody, if you had to give advice, and most people I meet live their life pretty defensively. What can I do to keep from losing? You don't have that DNA in your body. I don't think I have much of it either, but you certainly don't. You've always just gone after it. What is your life lesson? You're about to be 68 years old. We're both older than our parents were, and we used to see them hanging around all the time. I can tell you that. What's your message to people about living in this crazy world that we're in right now?
Show up. It's as simple as this. Your mission statement, be happy. All right. And you can only be happy with family, So it's all about be happy, you do it with family, and you show up. And next thing you know, you're next to Clemente, playing golf with Spurrier, hanging out with medicine men, and learn to listen. I'm working on that. Learn to listen. But it's really just about showing up, and you got to believe in something other than yourself. So I recommend that you grab a Bible and shut up and listen and show up, and you can go a long way.
Man, you've had a heck of a life, and you're still going strong. You're working on your PhD.
It's a big deal. I got to go before a committee with PhDs from London and all that. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't.
You'll make it. I bet you'll make it.
Dude, I feel like I got an angel that sits on my shoulder. Like I just get, it's like you said, man, I'm like achievement motivated in a jet, and I just got somebody looking out for me. I don't know who it is, but I got an idea.
Yeah, I got an idea too. One thing's for sure, man, we got some good DNA. We didn't have nothing to do with that. I can tell you that. That was the grace of God. We didn't choose them. But it's the grace of God that we were born where we were, with the folks we were, and the life we've had. We grew up at the perfect time.
Viewing life from a hearse, it could be worse. Laugh, think, and cry with the country undertaker.